Hi, I'm Alex Stamos, the director of the Stanford Internet Observatory, and wanted to talk to you today about a project that we were part of called the Election Integrity Partnership. Last year, about 120 researchers from Stanford, the University of Washington Center for an Informed Public, Graphica, and the Atlantic Council DFR Lab worked together to study disinformation that was being spread before and during and after the US election. What we'd like to do is talk a little bit about how this partnership came about, how it operated, and some of our top level findings. You can find all of the detailed findings that we'll talk about today at eipartnership.net. Next slide, please. The Election Integrity Partnership started with our team at Stanford sending a group of interns to go work with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency at DHS to work on election security. And while these interns found that there was a lot of opportunity for them to contribute to the technical components of election security, they also found that there was a lack of capability around election disinformation. This is not because CISA didn't care about disinformation, but at the time they lacked both kind of the funding and the legal authorizations to go do the kinds of work that would be necessary to truly understand how election disinformation was operating. So because of the feedback and the ideas from this group, we were able to pull together pretty quickly a project between these four different institutions to try to fill the gap of the things that the government could not do themselves. There are kind of four major stakeholders that we operated with that we worked beside at EIP. Our partners in government, most particularly those in CISA, DHS, but also in all the local and state governments with whom we operated with the Election Integrity Infrastructure ISAC. We worked with civil society groups such as the NAACP, MITRE, Common Cause, and the Healthy Elections Project that worked at both MIT and Stanford. And then we also worked with the major platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, Nextdoor, and the like. In some of those cases, we had agreements for access to data. In other cases, we had to have individual analysts go work with them. If we go back to the outline of what the flow was here, the idea was that we would have teams inside of the companies, inside of the EIP, that would take data that we were pulling from the social media networks. We would find examples of election disinformation. Our first tier of analysts would go look, see whether the claims were true or not, or were doubtful and needed to be verified, would classify them on our levels of different categories and prioritization. And then those would go to a second tier of analysts who would look to see whether that disinformation was part of a larger push or theme. And then there's a bunch of different outcomes. Those outcomes could include us reporting election disinformation to the platforms to be actioned under their own policies. It could be us doing a public announcement. It could be us working side by side with our partners in local and state election.